To order the City Commission meeting. It's Monday, June the 12th. Time is 5:30. Call the meeting to order. Would you please rise for the invocation pledge? Heavenly Father, we ask that you watch over this body tonight, that you give us the strength and the wisdom to make good decisions for the city of Leesburg. We do this in your name. Amen. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Tonight we have a couple of proclamations. The first is for Arlette R. Dent from the Leesburg Public Library, career online education graduate. Whereas the Leesburg Public Library is offering qualified Leesburg residents the opportunity to earn a free private accredited high school diploma and a certificate in one of 9 career pathways through the Career Online High School Project administered by Smart Horizons Career Online Education in partnership with Cengage Learning Company. And whereas the program is designed to re-engage adults and older youth in the educational system and to prepare them for the workplace or post-secondary education. And whereas the Leesburg Public Library offers the Career Online High School service to help fulfill its mission to facilitating lifelong learning and providing students a pathway to success. And whereas applicants to this high school diploma program must be a resident of the City of Leesburg or live in the City of Leesburg Utilities Service Area, must be at least 19 years of age, and must have completed an 8th grade, must not have earned a high school diploma or GED, and must hold an active card in good standing issued by the Leesburg Public Library. And whereas Arlette R. Dent is the first student of this program to fulfill all the requirements in order to graduate and receive a high school diploma accredited by the Advanced ED Accreditation Commission and a career certificate in general career preparation. Now, therefore, I, James A. Burry, Mayor of the City of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the accomplishments of Arlette R. Dent and am honored to present her high school diploma issued by Smart Horizons Career Online Education in recognition of her achievement by completing all the requirements of the Career Online High School program. What's that?
I'm trying to read her hat.
Oh, what is it?
Move the tassel over now. To the left.
I should have done that. Huh? All right.
52 and you can't do it.
I did it at 52.
Well, that's right. Okay, our second proclamation is for Pride Month. Whereas Pride Month began in June of 1969 on the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City after LGBTQIA+ and allied friends rose and fought against constant police harassment and discriminatory laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. And whereas the City of Leesburg respects the value and dignity of each LGBTQIA+ person and appreciates the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas the City of Leesburg denounces prejudice and discrimination based on race, religion, color, national origins, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, handicap, or marital status of any individual. And on May 26, 2015, Leesburg became the first municipality in Lake County to pass a non-discrimination ordinance extending vital protections to LGBTQIA+ individuals. And whereas the City of Leesburg acknowledges and appreciates the numerous cultural, civic, and economic contributions of the LGBTQIA+ community, would strengthen our community as a whole, and whereas it is imperative that young LGBTQIA plus people, specifically regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers, community, and political leaders. And whereas despite this marginalized and much work still having to be done in the form of civil, political, and social justice, LGBTQIA plus people will continue to celebrate authenticity, acceptance, and love. Now, therefore, I, James A. Burry, Mayor of the City of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, and encourage residents to recognize the contributions made by the members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and to promote the principles of equality, liberty, and justice in our city. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
At this point, we're going to have the Employee Service Awards recognitions.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Melissa Arriaga, Director of Human Resources. It's my pleasure to present these awards, and I thank in advance family members and employees that are here to support these employees who are reaching a milestone. So I will start off with, although our names are the same, we're not related, Mr. Ike Arriaga. He's a police officer, 5 years with the city. There he is. Congratulations, Ike. Congratulations. Next, Jamie Davis. She's a human resources analyst with the City of Leesburg, has been with us also for 5 years. Congratulations. Next, we'll go on to our 10-year service awards. Ms. Torella Coleman, she started with us in customer service, and now she works in recreations. Congratulations. Taraja's not here.
Taraja didn't make it. Sorry.
Next, we go on to our 20-year awards. Mr. Chuck Paget. He started with Public Works as a mechanic, and now he serves as an electric line crew leader 20 years later. Congratulations.
Wow, 20 years.
Now a major milestone. We're celebrating 30 years. Ms. Cheryl Rayford. During her career, she's worked in various departments, and now she's a senior buyer in purchasing. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, We'll now move to public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please give us your name and your address when you come to the mic. Any public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Deirdre Griffin. I live at 10534 Holloway Drive in Leesburg, Florida. I guess this would be kind of like a question for Grant. I've been trying to interpret the Live Local Act, and I guess my question could be for anyone up here that's been reading it that might have an interpretation on it. The way it seems to read is, will there be hearings through the Live Local Act, or will things be kind of passed through? Specifically, like if it's multifamily or rentals, will there be any legal applications that go out or publications?
It's there's a lot of things that are unclear with that law. It sort of came by surprise, I guess, in many ways, and so there's a lot of sort of looking into it and trying to understand exactly what the process is. The vague process that we're given in the statute is an administrative approval process, but there's really no teeth in terms of what that process might mean. It does say that applications would not go to the City Commission for any kind of final approval, that they would go through an administrative approval process. But as far as what that exactly means is somewhat unclear and could vary from place to place in terms of those procedures. So right now, it's possible that applications that would qualify as affordable housing under the Live Local Act could proceed through without any kind of formal City Commission hearing, certainly without a City Commission hearing that would have ultimate authority in terms of approving or denying a particular application that meets the standards that are required for the applications.
Okay. The other question would be, will safety concerns override that? So if there's still existing safety concerns in a particular type of development, would that kind of override what would be considered
Not
a pass-through?
necessarily, and you know, it's tricky because if the state preempts an area, then there's really not much that a local government can do to really regulate that particular area that's been preempted. And so it's just a little bit unclear right now exactly what the full effect of that will be and then how it might be changed or modified depending on the questions that come out. But there have been a number of seminars and things that have sort of been ongoing. I know the League of Cities is looking into the issue and trying to get some planners involved to kind of help better understand and grasp everything that's going on with it. But it is you know, something that's going to hit the books. It'll be effective July 1st. So we'll just kind of have to see how things go as that moves along. But right now it's sort of a wait and see kind of approach with the general framework. You know, if you've read it, there's not too much in there. It's very vague and ambiguous, and so it leaves a lot of questions.
Are any applications currently being on hold right now in anticipation of the Live Local Act?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate it. Have a blessed night.
Do we want to talk about
Gary Custer, 8909 East Treasure Island Avenue. Also got a quick question for Grant.
Yes, sir.
This is a city ordinance, and I've presented it to you all before, and I just want a clarification on it. Is it still valid? Do you utilize it?
Yeah, this is an ordinance that appears to still be valid from the code. Yes, sir.
Does the ISBA override that? Or is it the ISBA? Because it certainly allows you to do a lot of other things other than what that ordinance says.
The ISBA, well, there's two with Leesburg, and in some ways it sort of facilitates the joint growth or the joint issues between the city and the county. So the ISBA provides a framework within which to annex properties into the city, and then, the city has its comprehensive plan and the various things on the books, as you've pointed out, that are evaluated in the context of that application.
Well, it just seems to me, and I've said it before, that infrastructure should come before you annex a lot of these properties. I mean, you're creating a problem by annexing and creating more traffic coming into an area.
Well, I don't know
Specifically,
that
our complaint was on 44.
Yeah, and I don't know that annexation itself necessarily creates any traffic. Development,
How would it
annexation.
not? How would it not?
Annexation is just bringing property from one jurisdiction into a different jurisdiction.
But then
so
if
it
you
doesn't.
approve a development on that piece of property.
If you approve a development, then it does. But the county also has development approval procedures as well that someone can apply for.
Right.
So the annexation itself doesn't necessarily change anything other than the jurisdiction that governs the property at issue there.
But I've been
The
told.
development approvals and things do, and those would be evaluated within the municipality under the city's code as opposed to what the county's code and land development regulations are. So if the city allows one type of use on the property, then obviously that would be a difference from the county. But if somebody has not applied for something in the county, it's hard to say what might the county approve or what might they not approve.
But I've been told right here that roads are not your problem, they're the county's problem.
Well, I don't know. I think, again, I think the issue is that the roads in the area where you're concerned about are county roads, and so there's a jurisdictional issue where the city doesn't have authority to do anything in terms of regulating or governing those county roads.
But wouldn't it make more sense to be cooperative with the county so you can create the infrastructure, the proper infrastructure?
That's why they have the ISBAs. Those are joint agreements between the city and the county that also involve other types of service arrangements to where the county and the city work together on those issues when properties are brought in through the ISBA.
Yeah, but that's not the way it's working, because you're picking different areas. If somebody comes to you and they want to put it into the city, you got one over here and one over here. Nothing's continuous.
Well, there are two different annexation chapters, and one of them is pursuant to a joint agreement between the municipalities and the city, and the standards and the procedures are slightly different from one to the other.
I just think, Grant, that right there, that's in front of you, should be considered every time you approve a development or approve an annexation. That right there says a whole lot to me.
Yes, sir. I understand. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Number one, pull the item or items from the consent agenda. Number two, vote on remaining items with one roll call vote. And three, discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items anyone wants to pull?
Yes, I like the 5C2.
B3.
Any other items? Get a motion for approval of the remaining items?
Yes, so moved. Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Mayor Burry.
Yes. Okay, moving to the pulled items. Would someone please introduce item 5B3?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a contract amendment with Bright View Landscape Services, Inc. for landscape maintenance services and providing an effective date.
for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
So I'm the one that pulled it. I only pulled it just to really, I guess, lay the groundwork, number one, for the salary adjustments. We're having to engage this company for help with landscape maintenance, and this company is going to charge us $26.15 an hour for a position that right now pays about half that. We're going to be hopefully approving a starting salary to $15. It may take more over time, but I talked to Al about this. This is hopefully just a short-term fix while we work on our salaries, which will then in turn help us get proper staff. So I just want to bring that, I guess, to the public's attention, number one, and kind of lay the groundwork for, I guess, my support of salary increases.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce 5C2?
I'll introduce, has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, approving the West Leesburg Community Development Corporation American Recovery Grant Award and providing an effective date.
Move for motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Discussion?
Yes, I pulled this. I've got numerous questions on it. Talking about $750,000 here. 500 of it is being proposed to build some houses. My guess is out of the 500,000, you probably get 3 homes. 200,000 for home renovations, and then 50,000 for an operating cost. My questions or concerns are, I just think this kind of money could be used in a better effort to benefit the majority of people versus the way it's being proposed to be spent. I mean, you're talking about $500,000 to benefit 3 families. I mean, $500,000, in my opinion, somebody could brainstorm and come out with better ideas to benefit more of a larger the population than just 3 families out of it. That's my first concern. Part 2 is on the $200,000 renovation. I have not seen anything, guidelines on what's the qualifications to get this? Is there any time frame they have to stay in the house? Do they even have to live in the house other than just own it? Can it just be rental property? What is the criteria of what can be fixed and what can't be fixed with this? How much per home? Like I said, I got numerous concerns with this. I just don't think it's spelled out very clear to me. And like I said, I think the lion's share of the money is going for 3 new houses. Like I said, it's going to benefit 3 families, and $500,000 I think could be spent equally across on other things to benefit a larger, more amount of the people than just 3 families.
I'll make a few comments because I was on the commission when this is the federal money that came. I call it the COVID dollars. I forget the technical term. The COVID dollars. It's the money from the it's our tax dollars coming from the federal government, and then we received almost $12 million.
Right. And just for that breakdown, we received just under 12 million. Okay. And you broke it down in several.
We broke it into a lot of buckets, and the decision was made to spread the money throughout the city, and we did approve $750 to the Carver Heights District and Pine Street, the CDCs, and in an effort to spend the money throughout our entire city. I have said before, I do not want to micromanage the CDC. We have volunteers, people there coming forward with ideas, so I want to respect their opinion. I had to help me out. I had a different interpretation. My understanding is they are building houses and then selling them. We're not giving houses to anybody. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought we were going to use the money. I thought they were using the money to buy a house. We're going to take a vacant lot, build a house, sell it. So, and then they'll redeploy the money and do it again. And same thing with renovations. They're going to buy homes or help fix homes up. Maybe help me clarify.
You're correct in that.
So we're not just buying 3 homes.
There's three pieces to the request. The first part of the request is a request for immediate cash subsidy to go into West Leesburg CDC coffers, the 50 grand. The rationale for that is the CDC operated from a subsidy from the city for several years, about $950 a month, whereby that money was used for part-time employment, for some operation costs, and for some applications of housing programs that the city and the West Leesburg CDC work together on. We have had some issues with that in terms of just participation and getting things funded. And ultimately, we've decided recently not to pay that subsidy anymore, so it didn't work. So with that subsidy gone, the West Leesburg CDC still has the goal to do things to benefit the Carver Heights community. Most recently, there's been lots of talk and collaboration in the Carver Heights community about the importance of infill housing, being able to provide blight remediation, workforce housing, homes, and a way to increase the property values in Carver Heights. I think in general, the infill housing concept is a good one. So back to the request for West Leesburg CDC. One is the immediate $50,000, which would be a cash request that you would cut a check for West Leesburg CDC to help prop that organization up as our budget proposal moving forward is not to fund them in the future. Second is $200,000, and then there's two kind of prongs. One is kind of a purchase and rehab housing, and then the other is to receive infill housing lots from the city and then construct on those. Commissioner Berry has
and then sell them. We're not going to just give them to people. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but some of the concerns that Commissioner Cannell brought up about parameters of who receives the houses, rental, resale, those type of things, we don't have parameters on that. We haven't put that into place in the past. But I think that also now goes hand in hand with where Commissioner Berry is heading with trying to get some parameters on what infill lots or what inventory lots the city has that we would then donate to different organizations, whether it's the Leesburg CDC, Leesburg West CDC, Habitat for Humanity, or whatever not-for-profit agency is in there. So we were trying to get this moving and trying to wrap this all up in one, but I was unable to get Commissioner Berry's full request in on the parameters to establish for donations. Having said that, I think, based on some of the other things in the community where infill housing concepts are going, the West Leesburg CDC request seems to be in line with some of those other concepts. So again, it breaks down to a rehab, which takes about $200,000, purchase rehab, and then the remaining would be $500,000 on a request to revisit later on constructing houses that then would be sold and or rented. I think those processes to be determined in the future. But as far as a direct allocation, how the process would work is, again, the $50,000 would be a direct immediate allocation if you approve that tonight, but the $200,000 and the $500,000 would then be based on reimbursement. And then I think also our staff in housing, led from Sandra Wilson, will work with West Leesburg CDC to make sure that those funds are spent appropriately in timely manners and draws are made on those so that the city's not just cutting a check for $750,000.
May I make a comment as well as the commissioner for the district? This is the West Leesburg CDC's, I believe, third approach in how they would like to use the $750,000. I think this is in line with what the city needs as far as finding homes. In conjunction with the housing director, Sandra Wilson, and her assistant, Diane, I think this would be a great move as far as a learning process for the city to learn how to purchase, as well as present and find out nonprofit organizations for the infill lots that we have that are still in inventory that we need to move. I also would like to think that for us, the $50,000 in which the city manager just stated would be conducive for them to have operational money ready and available to be a part and partake in things. I believe that this was a good move as far as their rationale, and I don't have what is listed here are the details and what Al just explained, but I would definitely welcome and support this arrangement that they have requested.
And I'll just go one step further. I mean, we had a meeting a couple of meetings ago. There was criticism. You know, we get criticized both ways: give lots away, or we get criticized for holding them on the books and spending a lot of money to maintain them. I think this request is to go ahead and give them 5 lots. I'm fine with that too.
No, the lot request is pulled.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I left that in the packet because you can.
I just thought that went with the house construction.
Well, you can anticipate that request will come back. Those are lots that the West Leesburg CDC, for lack of better words, is kind of eyeing, that where they would like to build with this money. But we're doing it kind of a 2-step here. The first step would be to approve the ARP funding request, then come back, work on parameters of how we donate lots in the future, and then we'll bring back the West Leesburg CD's request and whoever else may have requests for infill lots as we move forward.
And yeah, the basis of my comment was this has been put on hold for months, and I just want to be respectful to the CDC and get this process going. That's why I brought up the 5 lots.
Just confirming, does the West Leesburg CDC have a board, or is it just one person running it?
They do have a board.
It's a board.
Yeah, they're here tonight
Yes.
if you need
President
representation.
Fisher.
Fred Griffin is their current president, and Fred was unable to make it tonight.
Okay.
Is the vice president here? I don't. Yes.
Just for my own clarification, so we don't have any parameters in place on the rehab program, or if the houses that were to be built, whether they're going to be sold or rented. We have nothing in place, and we're going to consider approving $750,000 with no parameters or guidelines in place. I don't think we should approve anything until we have that and we've had an opportunity to review it.
I believe the rental portion was pulled. They realized that they would not be landlords for the West Leesburg CDC. I think the vice president is coming up now. Maybe you can give us further details to support your request.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question then to me?
Commissioner Cannell's asking if there are parameters in place to guide either rental or purchases of the houses that would be constructed or rehabbed with the funds.
I don't have the answer to that question right now. No, I do not.
Yeah, there's no more rental. That was decided that the West Leesburg CDC would not become a landlord in the landlord business. That was stated.
Yeah, we had that big debate about 2 months ago,
Yes.
and they conceded on that because of the fact that the 500 might buy 3 homes, but with 500,000 we could build, flip, and serve more people. So we had that debate.
And I don't want to sidestep your question because I think the commissioner has a good question about parameters. We've obviously been in partnership with the Leesburg CDC and with Habitat for Humanity, where we have donated lots. And I would say, while we don't have a specific written parameter for the city of Leesburg, we do use other guidelines that were from HUD or from the county, whereby that generally guides low to moderate income standards, selection process. So while we don't have those things on the book, those parameters are in existence. I think it would be an easy issue to fix, and it would just be a matter of stealing the page from the HUD stuff and putting City of Leesburg on it from HUD. So we do have broad parameters, but we don't have specific parameters. The specific being Leesburg.
Yeah, and just remind everybody, the whole theory of the CRA is, by building these homes, we're going to build, flip, and it's going to create a higher tax base, which generates more money. And that's the whole idea of the CRA. So I think this is a great plan, and this is the third look. I mean, it's time to approve this and get some direction in this CDC district.
I also would like to add, with the direction of the housing developer, and again, the assistant, I think with this being a learning curve and a process with their assistance, they would go in the right direction of the process in which they could follow, and maybe piggyback off of Leesburg CDC as well as how they did it.
So we don't have any parameters. There's some general guidelines that nobody has seen. And anything in place about is there any what's the criteria to have somebody's house renovated? I mean, up to how much? I mean, what at what items are eligible? I mean, do you have to live in there? You just have to own it? Can it be rental? I mean, I think it's, until we get these answers, I just don't see how we can approve this.
So, excuse me. So the question then is, what are all the I's and all the T's to qualify the West Leesburg CDC to be given the CRA money? No. Is that your question? No. Okay, so your question specifically is that the West Leesburg CDC does not have all the parameters, all the information that you're requesting at this moment. Is that the question?
That would be the question, yes.
Okay.
I would like to see what the qualifications and what the parameters are for someone to approach the CDC and say, I'd like to renovate my house. How much can I get? What items are available through this program that I can get redone, fixed, what have you? Is there any length of time you have to stay in the home after the money's been awarded and the work's been done? I'd like to see that.
Okay, so I don't think that would necessarily be something that is outside of what has just been expressed here, that there are guidelines, there are people that have already presented, there are people that are already qualified, there are people that have been hired by the city manager to take care of housing. The West Leesburg CDC is housed in the Resource Center. The president has been meeting with them to discuss these things. So I don't see that there should be question of the capability of putting these things in place or of them being to the specificities of what you're asking.
Well, I mean, if there's parameters in place, that's great. I would appreciate if somebody could furnish those prior to a vote of $750,000. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay.
Excuse me, Ms. Tucker. Commissioner Kamel, this is John Christian. I'm with the Leesburg CDC, and we met with the West Leesburg CDC board, offered them some guidance and some pointers. Now, I don't think, Commissioner Connell, that the board is saying the $200,000 is going to renovate houses. That's for the acquisition of existing houses, and there may be a need to renovate, and they will probably sell that house as well as brand new homes. So they're not going to rent housing. They're not going to go and renovate my house or anyone else's house. So they're going to use the standards that are already in place. As Mr. Minner said, Lake County has a great program on affordability. So that $500,000, what I'm understanding, is for new construction. The $200,000 is for existing housing, but they're not going to go and fix people's houses up on this $750,000. Yes. And that's what the board, if I'm wrong, they can help me, but that's kind of what the parameters are. So they're not going to go to the community fixing up houses. They're going to buy existing house that's on the market that they can find, renovate that house, sell it, and as Commissioner Peterson said, do it over and over again to rid blight and get rid of some of the infill lots for Carver Heights.
Thank you.
I compliment you all. I think you've done a great job with it.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. We'll move on to item 6, public hearings and non-routine items. First of all, it's the second reading of ordinances. We have none. Item B is first reading of ordinances. Someone would please introduce item 1, 2, and 3.
Introduce item 6B, 1, 2, and 3 to be read by title only.
6B1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 60.27 plus minus acres, being generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3, and providing an effective date. 6B2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 60.27 plus minus acres from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate residential for property generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6B3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 60.27 plus minus acres from Lake County A agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD planned unit development to allow for residential development for property generally located north of Jackson Road, east and west of Park Lane, and west of Radio Road, lying in Section 10, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Andy. Grant, with this, with this item, you're going to need.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. So for item 6B2 is the only one. Typically for first reading, it would just be reading and there wouldn't be a vote required. But for 6B2, the comprehensive plan amendment, this is a large-scale comprehensive plan, so there would need to be a motion and a vote to approve transmittal of the package to the reviewing agencies.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
We'll do that at the end. Do we have
Yes, sir.
staff presentation?
Good evening, Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is for the Silver Lake Woods project. This is a proposal for a single-family residential development on 60 acres. It's generally located west of Radio Road and east and west of Park Lane. They're proposing 85 units on the 60 acres for a gross density of 1.41 units per acre. The request is a small-scale comp plan amendment from Lake County urban low density to City of Leesburg estate, and a rezoning from Lake County agriculture to City of Leesburg planned unit development. As stated earlier, 60 acres, 85 units, 28 plus or minus acres of preserved wetlands. The only permitted uses are single-family residential. There are 3 lot sizes within the PUD zoning, 52 lots at 50 by 130, 18 lots at 60 by 130, and 15 lots at 70 by 130. The access point is located on the south side of the property, not on Radio Road. It's required to be a boulevard-type access point with a landscape median, which allows for emergency access vehicles. The 60 and 70-foot lots are located around the exterior of the property, and all the 50-foot lots are on the interior of the property, internal to the subdivision. The homes will have 2-car garages. As we have discussed with the Commission on other projects, 50-foot lots will have gutters to direct stormwater away from the foundation of the property. Otherwise, we have the standard PUD conditions in effect, design and architectural standards, 25-foot buffers around the north and east and south of the property, trees in each front and rear yard, dark sky lighting, split rail fence on the north and south, and on the eastern boundary, there's an option for a 6-foot PVC fence, and then 4/10 of an acre for recreation. Mr. Jerome Hennon, the property owner, is here if you have any questions, and staff will answer any other questions you may have.
I did have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
You said that it's boulevard style, but it doesn't exit onto Radio?
That is correct.
What does it exit onto?
I believe it exits onto Jackson. Am I getting the street wrong? Go ahead, Jerome. It is on, I'm sorry. At the Planning Commission, the map was turned sideways and I got all messed up.
Okay.
It does exit on Radio Road, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah. Sorry about that, thank you.
Okay. Would you guys like to hear from the petitioner? You okay? All right. Any public comment?
Again, Gary Custer, 8909 East Treasure Island Avenue. I handed these out before. I'm going to do it again. It's the ordinance that I believe you all ought to read before you approve any developments. It's something that just really needs to be done different.
Any other comments from the commission? All right. We'll need a motion for item 2 for grant transmit.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And do we have a date for the second?
July 10th.
July 10th will be the second reading on this item. Okay. Moving on to item.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, before we move on, this will have to go to the state for review, which may take 30, 60 days, 30 days most likely, so it may not, I'm not sure if it'll line up exactly for that particular meeting, so just wanted to make sure we were
So
clear.
if we get it, we can have it July 10th.
We'll just
Or
wait.
should we wait till we
We'll just
get it
wait.
and then reschedule, or what's the best?
Yeah, we'll issue public notice.
Yeah, I
when
think
we
that's the
get-
best. So
we'll
look
issue public
around that.
notice when it returns
Yeah,
back.
I think it's appropriate to look around that time, but it may just depend on when the review's
Yeah,
back
I
from the state.
understand. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 4. Let's see, what is it? 4, 5, and 6. Would somebody please introduce?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Oops. Let me get the right one. 6B4, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 1.45 plus minus acres, being generally located west of Whitney Road and north of State Road 44, lying in Section 19, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida. Provided that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city. Providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances. Providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 2, and providing an effective date. 6B5, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 1.45 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg Institutional for property generally located west of Whitney Road and north of State Road 44, lying in Section 19, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6B6, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 1.45 plus minus acres from Lake County A agricultural to City of Leesburg P public, for property generally located west of Whitney Road and north of State Road 44, lying in Section 19, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Annie.
You're welcome.
Dan, you want to?
This project consists of an annexation of 1.45 acres for an electric substation. It lies west of Whitney Road on the north side of State Road 44. As Andy stated, it's a Lake County rural transition that would go to City of Leesburg Institutional and Lake County Agriculture under the zoning that would go to City of Leesburg Public. It's simply to be used for an electrical substation to add to our capabilities and capacities of the area.
Gotcha.
Just to jump in to tie on to Dan's comments, the contract currently is scheduled to close on or before August 10th on that. Right now we're in the due diligence period, and so August 10th, this probably should be wrapped up, assuming everything proceeds through everything all right.
Okay. Any public comment? Any comment from the commission? Questions? Okay, so this, we will obviously close on the property, hopefully, and the second reading will be
Yes, sir. The commission process and planning and zoning approval are all contingencies on the contract. So we're within that due diligence period to make sure that all of that can go through without any issues.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to non-routine items. Item C1. Someone please introduce that.
Has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the Mayor and City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, reaffirming the mission and vision statement, establishing goals for the organization, and providing for an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
All righty. Discussion? I think we had, anybody from the audience? I thought that somebody wanted some public comment on that. Okay. Nothing?
Just a quick summary on this is we obviously did our vision workshop, I guess that was a few weeks ago now. From that, we came up with certain mission goals. I think the primary thing we established was that we still liked and wanted to apply our existing vision mission statements, which kind of broke down our overall goals into 5 categories. And then from that, we identified several subcategories, such as increasing employee pay, such as managing the growth in South Leesburg, such as doing certain recreational projects. Some marketing concepts were in there. So I think the resolution's pretty explanatory. I don't think it's a Bible by any case, but certainly a guide on the major issues that we'll be working on for the next year or so.
Excellent. So do we need a vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've moved for approval. We can have roll call. Roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, so the next item is a presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Is there one up there? That it's. That's it. The next 3 items on the agenda kind of revert back to this, so I wanted to I'll be brief, but the concept, obviously the CBA, and we have some pay items that are significant, and essentially I want to lay some groundwork on the parameters of how we got to where we're at this evening, what the actions are going to be before you, and how that does bind you financially moving forward with the recommendation. So really back in the fall, this started from a request from Commissioner Connell to do an overall salary review of all of our working staff, and we have basically 3 categories of employee. The PBA, the Police Benevolence Association, which is all of our sworn officers. We have Program 72. They're employed and remunerated by pay and benefits through the collective bargaining agreement as they're a unionized workforce. Our other unionized workforce, obviously, is the International Association of Firefighters. They are also paid, and the parameters of their employment provisions are laid out in another collective bargaining agreement. The rest of your employees, which is everybody else other than sworn officers and members of the IFF firefighters, from an entry-level firefighter up to a lieutenant, are all unionized. Those 2 forces are unionized. Everybody else in the workforce is not. We refer to them as general employees, and that can be an electric lineman, solid waste person, wastewater, recreation, a maintenance worker 1, or what have you. Everybody else, Dan, is a general employee of the city. So with that, we completed a comprehensive survey, and what we found from the survey is that our general employees' pay is all over the place as far as competition. But the root of our issue is that because the marketplace has moved to whether it's public or private, has moved to the $15 an hour typical base pay, entry-level pay, whether private sector or public sector, we are finding ourselves behind on that. There was the state requirement that every employer in the state pay the $15 an hour by 2026, but again, because other agencies have done this before us, we are finding that we are really struggling in our pay, so we need to increase that. If we increase that base pay, then we have a compression issue. So we have probably about 30 positions of our 520 that are below $15 an hour. So if you pick that number up from our base rate of $12.74 up, that's 70 people, or 30 or so people that you affect, that then creates compression. So we really have to examine all of our employees from the pay scale number of 112 to up to a 142. So that's entry level to mid-management and supervisory type levels. So we put together a process to examine that. I'll go over it in a bit. We also have found out that we need to increase police officer pay. The region, we are significantly suffering with recruiting. Of 72 paid positions, we have 7 vacancies, which is significant. We think is directly related to that our entry-level pay is not competitive to other organizations, and we continue to be behind the 8 ball in recruiting with organizations like the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the OPD, and some other larger organizations that get a lion's share of officers because they pay in a neighborhood of $60 grand a year to start. And then we also found that our IAFF wages are a little bit low. So our proposals that are here before you tonight is to increase the police pay to that $60 grand a year number. And then that again creates compression. That's a 16% increase that you really need to pass along to all police officers so that all your police officer positions remain competitive. Our recommendation to fund this is twofold. The first fold is we think we need to recognize some freezes in some positions so that we can ease into the increase in the general fund. We'll talk about that in more detail in the fiscal year 24 budget items. But then also as we move into fiscal year 25 and 26, we recognize that we think we need to add more police officers to our workforce. The goal that Chief Hicks would like to get to is 90, and as we get into the budget process, we'll talk about ways how we think the new village's property tax growth will take care of that or help us get there. I'll throw you a quick slide too this evening so you can see. IAFF, we offered a couple of different proposals to the IAFF, but the basic proposal is a 5% increase across the board. IAFF would like to add all hours worked as a clause in the pay contract items. What that means in English for us that don't regularly know CBA language is there is a requirement that if you have paid time off and then you're required to come into work after your paid time off on a non-scheduled day, you then would receive overtime pay. That is the parameter in the PBA, CBA, but not the IAFF. The IAFF has requested that be modified to mirror the CBA for the PBA, and that cost is 2.5%. The magic number that we identified that we think that we're not competitive in IAFF pay is 7.5%. So item number 1 and item number 2 adds up to an incremental increase for the members of the IAFF to 7.5%. And number 3 is to increase the paramedic incentive pay. We have about 48 paramedics or firefighter engineers. The paramedic pay then is of those firefighter engineers, we have 24 slots where we have paramedics. Paramedics then have additional qualifications to provide you that emergency initial response medical treatment if you need it. And Chief Merrill likes to keep about 24 paramedics on pay. So we pay them an incentive pay to get that upgrade. And then we pay them that bonus of $13,000 a year. I think it comes out to on their pay scale, it's about a $4 increase per hour for that goes onto their base pay. General employees gets a little bit more complicated on how we tackle getting the base pay up to $15 an hour. And essentially, there's, with a couple of deviations, this is the broad spectrum. Is the base pay is found in the pay scale 112. So if you're federal government, you're a GSer, and then general scale. Ours we call pay grade 112. We literally have a step from 112, 113, 114, 115, all the way up to 142. Those base steps have a top and a bottom. So just for practicality and ease of discussion, the numbers that I'm going to give you are the bottom numbers. So we're recommending that the bottom pay scale of 112 be increased to $15 an hour. That is an increase from $12.72 to $15 an hour. Each step, so step 13, 113, 114, 115, and forward, there's a 4% gap between each step. So a step 113, the base scale of that would be $15 plus 4%, and so on, repeat to 142. Once you adjust that, everybody then moves up to 15, and then you have to tackle your compression issues. So you have employees who may be a 114 or a 115 who aren't quite at $15 an hour, so you can't bump up that employee who's making in the $12.70 an hour range and then bump them up to 15, and then have people who've been here longer or in different pay scales get less. So you adjust that, and then you have to recognize longevity. So when you do that, then you bring up base pay, you affect longevity pay. So we came with a formulaic approach on how we do that. And the formulaic approach is, in your current pay grade, you get 1%, you move to the bottom of the pay scale that you're currently in, and then you get a 1% bonus for every year of service. So for example, there might be a person in pay grade 112 who's been there 18 years. Their pay would then become $15 an hour times 18%. And that would put them about $19 an hour. So that way you recognize the bottom and give longevity. You do that throughout the pay scale of 142. As we get to pay scale 133, we start getting into middle management and some senior management, and then the recommendation then becomes you get the formulaic approach or 5%, whichever is greater, with the exception of the command staff, the police department, which we think we need to recognize them with the CBA agreement, and as well as the IFF, recognize the 7.5% increase for the management, the brass, and the fire department. So 5% or whichever is greater, or where the CBA affects those things. That's the proposal before you, and you have 3 resolutions this evening that comes after this presentation, where you will consider the PBA CBA, the IFF CBA, and then this modification in resolution form to accept the new pay scale. And then in that resolution, I'm asking not only that you increase the pay pursuant to these parameters in each 3 of the classifications, but I'm also asking that you pay these benefits July 1st, which is the last quarter of fiscal year 23. Then I'm asking in that resolution as well that you authorize me to enter into an MOU with the IFF and the PBA to recognize the last of the quarter pay versus the first of the fiscal year pay. That's the outline. So now the question is, how do you pay for it? If you go ahead and you do the July 1st pay increase, there would be no pay increases for the beginning of October 1, as the employees would receive their pay last quarter of this year. So they actually get their fiscal year 24 bump 3 months early. So they earn a little bit more money earlier. That's good for the employees. That's good for us as an employer, because we can get to that $15 an hour minimum quicker. So hopefully we can recruit, so we don't have to use that Brightview contract that you just approved. And then that helps with chief with recruitment to fill positions as we move forward. Long story short on how you pay for it. Payroll as proposed, as I just laid out for fiscal year 27, would be about roughly $27 million of our $200 million budget, rough numbers. This year, fiscal year 23, you adopted about a $24 million payroll. So the increase, if my math is wrong, is about a 12% increase. Of that $24 or so million that we allocated for fiscal year 23, we've only spent or will spend about 22 million of it. So we have about a $2 million cash gap, and that's because of the vacancies, because we've been having trouble filling people. So if you apply this to this fiscal year, you have the cash to pay for it the rest of the fiscal year. Now here's the trick. If you do that, you're quasi putting the cart in front of the horse, because now you're committing to higher payroll for a fiscal year that you haven't planned for. In the enterprise funds, it's a really simple equation, because we won't be recommending an increased user fee beyond the COLA, which we do on an annual basis, or the CPI increases, which are relatively minor, and through those funds, we can shift blocks around and absorb the increases. The general fund is the tricky one. And the general fund has two major items where you have a process that you have to approve through the trim notice, so that in August folks see what their assessments are going to be, which is the fire assessment fee, and what their taxes are going to be, which is the millage rate. And then ultimately you don't approve that until September, which is then effective October 1. So if you cut a big check for employee pay raises and then don't tackle that, three things occur. You need to increase your assessment fees, you would need to increase taxes, or you would need to commit to spend cash. Now you have the cash, and in fiscal year 25, if we fail to do A or B assessments or taxes, then you're forcing yourself into cash that you have, and cash that actually is going to be replenished. So why would Minner ask you to put the cart before the horse? And that's because we've got ways out that are attractive, that I don't think put the commission in politically sensitive positions, and you've got the growth coming in out years to pay for it. And it's the right thing to do for our employees. So how do we tackle it? We talked about the enterprise funds pay for themselves. We also see that we will not increase electric rates. We'll make that proposal for you in fiscal year 24 upcoming. And I also think you'll be able to bring down the power cost adjustment, hopefully the last quarter of this year or by October 1. The recovery numbers look extremely well. In fact, in about 2 days, we'll get the numbers for May. All the other funds take care of itself. The general fund doesn't. So how do we do this? First thing we're going to recommend, which is the next thing on the agenda, is we're going to recommend that you increase the fire assessment fee. By resolution that you will consider here in a little bit, you pass a resolution that's a notice that says we are considering raising the fire assessment fees to these numbers. That then sets up that those numbers are published in the trim notice, which goes out in August. The other side of the taxing house is the millage rate. In July, you will approve the DR 420. The DR 420 is a resolution and a state form that says this will be your maximum millage rate. You will not tax property taxes higher than whatever this number is. You can go below it, but you can't go over it. But you can go over it, but then you got to do a whole process of advertising, which is cumbersome and difficult. So typically, that's the max number. When you do the DR 420, which we'll do in July by process, when you consider that resolution tonight, then your vehicles are set so that these pieces of information on finances to the public will go out in the trim notices, and the public will see what their taxes and assessments are being proposed for the coming fiscal year. You will finally adopt that in September. So our proposal with those processes in mind, increase the fire assessment fee by double. That's a big number. Right now it's $87. The proposal that you'll consider to advertise tonight is $106 per ERU. All other classes, 160, what did I say?
167.
I said, yeah, let me say that correct. It's 87 is current. The proposal is for $165, what we call that ERU, equivalent residential unit. It's a single family house. All the other classifications, commercial, industrial, warehouse, are a cents per square foot. So whatever those numbers are, we're doubling those. Those are in, everybody's getting doubled. Second, we think even though we're asking for a doubling of the fire assessment fee, we can mitigate that increase because on June 1st, we found out that our property taxable value growth went up 23%. So that's a big jump. If that property number goes up, that means you can correspondingly reduce the property taxes so that the net increase is negligible. I'll show you that slide, and let me just jump to that slide right now. So for example, I just turned that off. Can you turn that back on, Anna? I tried to use the pointer, and of course it doesn't work. So I'll just speak up. In fiscal year, the average home value in Leesburg is roughly $200,000 for a home. After exemptions, typically, the exemptions will vary, but the typical exemption is $50,000 from your home. So you're taxed on a value in 23 of $150,000. A millage rate is per thousand, so the math is 150,000 divided by the millage rate, 4.0192, and yes, we need every one of those 4 spots, and you come up with a city tax bill of $602. Then down on the bottom of your trim notice or your tax bill, you'll see the assessment section, and it'll say Leesburg Fire Assessment, $87. So in fiscal year 23, a resident who has a house value of about 200 grand, their tax and assessment bill was $689. Now, if you have the $50,000 exemptions, that means you're homesteaded. So in the state of Florida, when your house is homesteaded, that means your value can only go up 3%, even though growth is 23% on the residential side. The commercial side is capped at 10%. Then we have new growth. So we have 3% growth for existing, 10% growth for existing commercial, and then new commercial and residential. In that case, for this taxpayer, their home value will go from $200,000 times 3% to $206,000, less their exemptions, 50 grand. So now instead of being taxed at 150, they're being taxed at 156. So if you drop your millage rate to 3.425, the tax bill is $534 versus $602. So that's a reduction of $70. So then if you add the new tax plus the assessment, the total is $699 versus $689, which is an overall increase of $10 or 1.37%. That will be our proposal to this body. The first step in that is the assessed value number that you need. The first step in that will be to send that resolution of the notice of increase of fire assessment fee as I described earlier. The caveat to all of this is these are estimated numbers. 3.425 mils recommends our best estimate based on the information that is sent by the property appraiser's office June 1st. Every first of the month, July, August, September, and even into October, the property appraiser will update that assessed value number. I sent the commission the June 1 numbers by text the other day. We have a copy of it if the public's interested. It might have even already been in the paper. But ostensibly, our total taxable value in the city of Leesburg is $2.2 billion. That's the number that's up 23%. So those are the processes. Just to complicate life a little bit, 23% was a really good number. I'm going to go out on the limb, and I'm going to say for fiscal year 24, you're going to see an even crazy high number. The 23% growth number does not include the villages, only 90 houses. It is estimated that by the end of this year, the 470 property will be built out, 3,200 homes. So now we come down to, we looked up some of the sale values of the homes that range between $400,000 and $500,000. Break that down into the taxable value, less homestead exemptions, just rough house, we're using a number of 300. So 300 times the 3,200 times the low millage rate is a total taxable value of almost $1 billion and a taxable revenue of somewhere around $3.3 million. That's the number we think we're going to be pretty close to next year. And if we don't see it next year being 25, and if we don't see it in 25, we'll see all of it by 25 and 26. So going out into the future, the general fund is in a good position to talk about these things. And I went backwards, but essentially that is the presentation. The important thing I wanted to stress to the commission tonight is I think we have to approve the CBAs. I think we have to modify the general wage earnings for the general employees. I think we need to address that July 1st. We have the cash. We have a reasonable taxing vehicle to figure out how we pay for it in 24. And we have some backstops of where we know cash is and where we know revenue is in case we don't do A or B. As we get into July and the budget workshops and as we get into August, these numbers will tighten up. The other side of the equation is the commission may want to not lower taxes that much. So as we have our budget discussions coming up, I think it's July 6, 8, and 10. It's the Thursday preceding the holiday, and then the Tuesday and the Thursday again. Those are the dates.
6, 11.
What is it, Andy?
6th, the 11th, and the 13th.
6, 11, and 13, we will drill down into these numbers as we always do. We'll have the July numbers in there, and so then we can take that 3.4 number and we can have the data from the property assessor's office, and we'll drill down into what's the rollback, what's the increase, what's the decrease, and then we can start figuring it. But I think we're in a really good position today to deal with the PBA, CBA, the IAF, CBA, and increasing pay for general employees effective July 1.
Al, while you're there, just since you were talking about the fire assessment, could you go back and tell us county-wide where that kind of would put, it's not like we're double sounds like a big thing.
I actually tried to be a lot briefer than that, but let me, so I didn't in this presentation, let me make your question longer because it's an important point to bring up. Why the heck does the city want to double the fire assessment fee and lower taxes? Right. To answer your question, Mayor, typically the state statutes lays out that an assessment is different than a tax. I know if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, it's a tax. I get it. But legally and strategically, an assessment is different, and it allows you to do different things. And a fire assessment fee in the state of Florida allows you to capture your fire service costs in an assessment. And then you're measured on the percent that you collect. In our case right now, we under-collect in our assessment. What you want to do is you want to free up as much general revenue as you can so that you can spread that millage revenue around to all the general services that a municipal corporation provides. So if you can isolate the fire assessment fee, you have a better taxing structure. Right now, our fire assessment fee is $87 per ERU, and we capture 40% of the available costs by statute that we can capture. So obviously, if we double it, those numbers are just double them. We'll go up to 165 potentially, and then you capture 80%. So what that does is three things. It isolates your fire service cost to an assessment fee that everybody pays pursuant to those rates that you will consider. Second, it frees up the availability so that when that new village's revenue is coming into the community, you're free to have more of that spent on different general services. Our recommendation is going to be threefold, and I'm sure we're going to toy about that, but it's basically going to look like police, surcharge, and our recommendation again, the commission hasn't talked about this, but police growth, surcharge reduction, and putting money away for capital improvements. We'll lay that out in the budget workshops. So you isolate that service, you maximize that new money coming in. And then the third thing is when we did the agreement with the villages, I've used the nickname, we want to end the delta. So when we signed up with the villages, we agreed that fire services were going to be provided by the villages fire service district. We agreed that we were going to pay them $160 per ERU, and that money was going to come out of two places. Our existing fire service assessment, which is $87, plus we were going to go over and grab some of that new villages revenue, marry it, and give the check to the villages fire district, not the villages, but the villages fire district, different entity. We agreed to that in principle, and we thought that was a good deal at the time. And it was a good deal because you see the numbers. And so it's the delta of the 160 minus 87 times the number of houses, that's about 230 grand. So by eliminating the delta, what you get is you don't have to pay that delta difference to the fire service district, so that allows more ad valorem revenue to stay in your pocket or be reassigned as you go. All that to say, now to answer your question, the typical Lake County and statewide fire assessment fee is collecting somewhere between 80 to 100% of your available fire services at a rate that's north of $200. There are two communities in Lake that don't have a fire assessment fee, which is Claremont and I want to say Eustis. Is it Eustis? Have zero. But then you have other communities like Groveland who have a tiered system that go anywhere from $225 to $275, and to varies, and some of the other communities, Fruitland Park, and everybody kind of hanging around about $225. So at 185, I keep mixing my numbers. At 165, we're hanging out at 80%, and even though that's double, you see all the effects, and it's still a competitive fire assessment fee.
Thank you, Al. Okay, so as a matter of procedure, do we need an approval?
That was just a presentation.
That's the
next
Sir, that was just a presentation. So moving beyond the presentation into C3 through C8, those would all be resolutions that would require votes.
Okay. All right. Would someone please introduce item C4?
I'll introduce and ask to be read by
C3.
C3. I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, relating to the provision of fire protection services, facilities, and programs in the City of Leesburg, Florida, imposing fire protection assessments against assessed property located within the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, approving the rate of assessment, approving the assessment roll, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second. Discussion? Nobody? Roll call?
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce item C4.
I'll introduce C4 and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement with the Florida Police Benevolent Associations, Inc. for officers, detectives, and corporal sergeants, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Mayor Burry.
Yes. Okay, will someone please introduce item C5?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement with the Professional Firefighters of Leesburg Local 2957, IAFF, AFL-CFO-CLC, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Mayor Burry.
Yes. Someone please introduce item C6.
I'll introduce C6 to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing approval of the revised pay scale for the general employees payable effective July 1, 2023, authorizing the city manager to enter into memorandums of understanding to implement agreed wages to the PBA and IAFF effective July 1, 2023, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
So I hate to interrupt because you're on, a roll. But this vote is the one that says we're gonna implement the general employees' pay, and then we're gonna make the IFF, the PBA, and general employees' pay all effective July 1. So a yes vote on this means we just put the cart before the horse for all those reasons that I think are justifiable and should work out by the time you adopt the fiscal year 24 budget in September. I want to stress that because I've been fretting that the whole cart before the horse thing.
And I met with Al,
spirit
obviously.
Of full disclosure. Okay?
Yeah, like all the commissioners, I'm sure. I know I met with Al and discussed all of this, and I compliment Al. I think this is a solid recommendation, all of them.
Any other discussion? Your job on the line? Is that what you're saying?
My job's on the line. I recognize that my job is on the line every day and reviewed twice a month.
I think this is a good thing because without employees, we don't have a city. So we have to take care of our employees.
Yep. Roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Mayor Burry.
Yes. All right. So someone please introduce item 6C7.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing approval of a commissary kitchen for Leesburg Resource Center and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a couple things. There was two numbers back and forth of an annual deposit of $1,000, then a $50 an hour rate, and then a membership fee structure of $500 a year with $15 an hour. I would like to see if we could go with the $1,000 deposit, $50 an hour rental rate.
That's all I saw.
Yeah, Commissioner Reisman spoke to me, and it gives credit to Commissioner Reisman because he brought this concept to my attention, and then I worked with Sandra to come up with the concept on using the kitchen as a commissary kitchen at the Resource Center, and we modeled it after Eustis. So I think it's a good program. I mixed some numbers from the application forms that Sandra put together versus my agenda transmittal. So we like the proposal of for use of the kitchen, you need to provide the insurance. Housing staff will manage the program for us and make sure that everybody has their stuff in place and that the facility is used correctly. Secondly, the deposit of $1,000 is a one-time payment annually, so that gets your foot in the door. Anybody who would want to use the kitchen would pay $1,000. That's to prep for damages, repairs, increase of cost, these type of things, and then an hourly fee of $50 an hour. So we've actually, if you make that revision to the motion, we've actually I think that's how the resolution is written, and we've already revised. Okay. So the number is $1,000 entry fee and $50 an hour.
And I'm just curious, is this for residents of the city of Leesburg, or is this anybody?
It'd be anybody who provides the insurance and wants to use the kitchen. We anticipate that it would be for gatherings, for different culinary schools. We originally had a program with Lake Tech, but that really started to fall apart after COVID. And we've just received a bunch of different requests from different culinary teachers or small businesses throughout the community that needed a place to use this type of facility, and we think it actually served well.
I'd also like to just make sure that we have a yearly review of all insurance documents, catering licenses, and I would like to include that for also the Venetian Center, that all documents of all parties are reviewed on a yearly basis, because we have to renew our contracts for certain things on a yearly basis, just to make sure we're keeping up with that.
Do we need a motion to amend it to include that, or not?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
It's $1,000 for entry and $50 an hour. That was how the transmittal read, and we've modified the draft application packets to reflect the agenda transmittal and Commissioner Reisman's suggestion.
Okay. Roll call?
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Would someone please introduce item 68?
Introduce, ask be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the Home Improvement Grant Program and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval?
Move for approval.
Yeah, second.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Al, can you kind of explain what the amendments are to this policy?
Yes, sir. This is an incentive actually from Commissioner Berry. Commissioner Berry is actively wanting to make sure that housing stock throughout the community is improved. But I think specifically she's focused on her district and Carver Heights specifically, and drilling down in there, we made some ways to tactically use the money. So a couple years back, I know this is a long answer, a couple years back, we created a couple of different programs, the Facade Sign Landscape Program and the Home Rehabilitation Program. Later, we added the Downtown Historic Building Renovation Project. And each project was seen to overlap the entire community so that the program could work anywhere in the city, but it was funded 4 different ways based on where the commission wanted to fund any specific year, and the flexibilities are written and continue to stay in the program so that it's funded and grant awards as the commission funds the projects each fiscal year. Those funding sources would be the Carver Heights CRA, so that if a grant is paid out of the Carver Heights CRA, it has to be in Carver Heights. The 44127 CRA, for the same reason. A project comes, it has to be funded from that CRA. Downtown would be the downtown CRA. And then the general fund can also fund these programs as you determine fit, because there's some areas in the city that don't fall into those TIF districts that then we may want to address. We saw that happen on occasion with the Facade Sign Landscape. I think I will be honest, I think the FSL grant, although we haven't talked about it, has had some mild success. The Home Rehabilitation Program has not had success. I think the Home Rehabilitation Program has not had success because we set the grant level just too low. We required a match, and $5,000 unfortunately doesn't get anything fixed. When we had these big discussions, when we implemented the grant categories, we identified things that we wanted to make sure that would get improved, because that would improve the housing value, and then that would ultimately bring up assessments in the future. And that was making sure roofs are repaired, windows are repaired, doors, security issues, sidewalk. So now to the things that we're changing in the program. Number 1 is the money. We are $5,000 be increased to $25,000. The current proposal has no matching requirement, so it's a check for $25,000. The other things that we added in there were some landscaping improvements as a modifications, and then also a lien if you take the money for 3 years. Commissioner, you'd asked about that and some of these other things that needed to be a little bit of a crawlback or a restriction on selling, so we put a lien requirement on the house. There's one sentence in there that does say that the commission has the right to remove the lien. The anticipation of the thought behind that is if somebody dies, they own their house, and the estate is selling the house, then we would probably want to release the lien for that. So I think you still want to have a case-by-case basis of where you release the lien, but you put that lien in there. So that's a big modification. Approving this evening is step one. If you approve this evening, then there, frankly, I think there's only about 25 grand in the Carver Heights CRA for the home rehab program, and throughout the other TIFs, I would say about the same. So this funding level then would need to be something that you look at during the budgeting process to increase the funding. So tonight is step one. Yes, let's change it. Then step two would be how much do we want to fund it, and we do that in the budget process. But the big change is the money, the lien restriction, the landscaping requirement. I think we added the safety, the fire, and carbon monoxide detectors as an additional requirement, and the no match requirement. Those are the major modifications.
Would this be open to any Leesburg resident?
It would be open to any Leesburg resident where you fund the program. So let's say you increase the funding in Carver Heights, you couldn't use that money in downtown, or you couldn't use that money in the 441-27 CRI, or you couldn't use that money outside. So as long as you take the funding and you apply it in sources, then you can spend it anywhere.
So a resident who's of the county but lives in Leesburg can't apply for it, correct?
Correct. You have to be. It still has. So those major changes are you have to be the Leesburg resident, and it has to be owner occupied. Those were primary criteria that we did not change, that we had long discussion about when we adopted the program initially.
I had two comments. The first one was a cap. I think you answered that. We'll approve it in budget, whatever amount we're going to allocate. My second comment, I do support the program. I like it. I'm just going to throw out, I'd like to, two ideas. I'm not comfortable just giving the money away. I would like to propose that we have either a requirement for at least 10% contribution from the property owner, and if they're unable to do that, that the lien is kind of a sliding scale. I'll use the example of a 10-year lien that would decrease 10% annually. Maybe it's a 5-year lien decreasing 20% annually. But I'd like to see one of those things built in there. With those conditions, I'll fully support it.
I'd like to add, please. My thought process, behind this was not to be a handout, but a handout more for the community. These are residents that homes majority owned, built in late 50s, early 60s, plus that needs repairs. Ridding the blight would be the first and major concern. And two, enhancing home ownership, making people feel prideful of what they own, and encouraging them to, instead of coding out for not up to code and assessing fees, this is a way we could help rehab the homes so people are able to keep their homes and continue to live either on their fixed income, one losing a spouse, or retirement fee, which we all are, which is all happening all over. However, most of this community in District 1, you will find more homes that are not up to code and just need assistance as far as rehabbing. I think this plan and grant program is excellent, but more than the sad part of it all, most people didn't even know about it. So they didn't even know how to go about getting this. So that is one thing as far as putting this out in the open for everyone, as well as giving them funds that could actually make changes in their home. So I think this is a win-win all the way around for not only for District 1, but for the city of Leesburg.
You might want to.
Well, I guess I'm on an island by myself. If no one else is, if I'm getting nods, I won't make a motion, but I would like to amend it. In fact, I will go ahead and amend it or make a motion to amend it to a requirement. I just feel like people need to have some skin in the game. I respect all of the comments made, but to ask for 10% and basically we'll give you up to $22,500 toward your home, that's pretty generous. Yes. And if you can't do that, I'm not eliminating you. I'm open to the commission's comments on a 5-year sliding scale or a 10-year sliding scale, but I'm
just for clarity, so I think we're commission, because you said 22.5. So my suggestion would be that the maximum grant award is $25,000 with a contribution
of 10%
of $2,500.
Yes.
So that would be $27,500 of improvements.
But if they only
if they don't provide the cash, then it's a 5-year lien, and if you sell the home, you have to pay back the $25,000 in increments of 20%.
And I'll even decrease it over the 5 years. So in year one, it's
100%, 80%, 20%.
That's
50%.
my motion.
And then after the end of 5 years, it's gone. So that's an easy motion that we could modify if the motion's adopted by the body.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm okay with it. Second.
Second that motion. So let's discuss it. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I do have some comments. I just think that putting liens is another added pressure for most people that can't afford. Like I said, this is improving the blight in the community, as well as bringing neighborhoods up to par so that mainstream investors will want to come in and invest more. The district in itself, as you all know, have had serious cases of, well, as you would know, that areas need to be rehabbed. I think when we assess the homeowners with coding because they're not up to par, that puts even more pressure on them. They're not able to fix their homes for repair. Now they have a fee, and then we have the lots that we now have in inventory. I want to not do this. And I think my way around, or the process, if the commission would agree, the way around from not assessing the fees is to help them rehab the home. And if they could fix up their homes financially and could afford, I think it would be done. I met with the residents on April 27th for one area, and out of 48 homes, 28 homes were actually homeowners. They were very eager and excited that someone is even considering looking to give them some type of assistance. It was a survey that was done. I got 28, over half percentage of information surveys reported back in that supports the, one, eagerness to improve their area, two, realizing that this is not what they are comfortable with in living, and due to whatever reasons, because each home and each resident was a different story, this would be ideal for helping. Like I said, I don't look at it as a giveaway. I look at it as increasing the district as well as the city. So please consider.
Okay, so Mike, with your motion, what you're saying is instead of a $25,000 grant, we're going to give you $22,500, and the homeowner has to come up with $2,500, or the lien is extended.
And I'm reducing it over.
And the lien goes
20% a year over 5 years. So in other words, I don't give them $25,000 and they flip it in the next year or two, and they make all the money. I realize we've improved the house. We're trying to improve the neighborhood. I get all that, but to me, I don't think it's unreasonable. The grants I think almost all the grants. Well, the prior grant here was a 100% match. It was $5,000, and it was a 100% match. The prior program, it didn't work. I'm just asking for 10%, and if you can't do it, I'm not going to kick you out of the program. I'm just going
to extend the lien.
I'm going to put the lien on your house, and I'm also going to extinguish. So extinguished in 5 years.
Right.
And if you sell your house in year 3, I just want 40% back. That's my idea.
So what is the criteria to qualify?
I'm not
going to get into that.
No, that's in the grant program. So you have to be owner occupied, a resident of Leesburg, and then there's criteria that prioritizes the grant. You know, you got to be current in taxes. There's an LMI element in there as well. That's based on the HUD issuance of, you know, income times income plus, depending on how many people are in the home. Current in taxes, current in no liens, no code enforcement stuff. Diane, I'm forgetting something. What am I forgetting, Diane?
That part of the way we're going to implement the program is that we are partnering with 2 other agencies that have money. So Habitat has a grant that is designated to Leesburg and Leesburg only for some of the same rehab things in the rehab application that we've identified, as well as in county community action.
Gotcha.
So it may not be one resident that is getting $25,000 from the city. It could be that they're getting their assistance from 3 different agencies.
Right. In short, there's some other agencies out there that can help maximize and get some more dollars for rehabilitation of owner-occupied housing.
So will the grants go in different buckets? I mean, will one guy get 25, just a gift, and the other guy next door because he's City of
I
Leesburg?
anticipate that you probably will be on a sliding scale of 0 to 25,000, depending on who's participating in each grant.
Do the other programs have those kind of requirements? Or are they just a gift?
No, because
I know you don't like my
no,
gift.
The other programs, being the other programs in the city, the FSL grant doesn't have this requirement.
But the other programs she just alluded to, the county money.
No, because those are specific for housing.
So that's a 100% grant.
No, each pro.
Okay, I'm fine. Okay, you answered my question.
The housing program is different because there are different pots available. So depending on who we partner with and how we partner. And I didn't bring this up because it complicates the issue.
I'm thrilled to hear there's other agencies putting money in the community. So
right.
I'm good.
So there's a way to get more than 25 grand for a house. There's because you might mix Habitat money and Leesburg money.
Okay.
Or you might just need a little bit of Leesburg money and you get Habitat money. So there's different avenues that the housing department will be able to help individuals with. The other big change, too, is that we're going to try to advertise this program more out of the housing department, which we think will have better outreach. So that, and just, Commissioner Peterson, I think your modification, just for all practical purposes, is a reasonable one, because you still achieve Commissioner Berry's goals, which is, okay, you're working with somebody who is cash-strapped, who doesn't have any money. So if they can't bring money to the table, they're going to sign on for the lien option. Or you might have somebody who has a couple of, who has money, who doesn't want the lien, so then they bring money to the table to do away with the lien. So honestly, I think it's a really reasonable compromise to get the program going.
I also want to add, please, that it says up to 25,000. So based on the survey that I have received, I think it would depend on what the homeowners are actually wanting and needing done. So it might not be this amount, but this dollar amount.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I need to clarify. Mine's a 90-10. Mine is a 90% 10% split, or the decreasing lien.
Right.
Yeah.
We're saying the same thing.
Do we need to amend?
You already have a motion. You have an emotion on the floor.
For 90-10, what do you got out of there, Grant?
Yeah, I think the motion's okay. Commissioner Peterson just sort of clarified the 90%, 10% issue, so I think that you're okay with what's on the floor.
And these grants will still come back to us in our CRA meetings for approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Each and every grant.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion on the amended motion?
Let me just do some math. I think that is 90-10. I just wondered. It's not. 10% would be 27.5.
Right.
They would, and not 2,500. They need to get a 90-10 grant.
No. My example was
Getting 25 from us.
25,000.
And you
okay, and they put 20. Okay, you're right.
And you need to do this. So you go to 27. So the total grant. So you're saying you want a 90-10 program.
That's what I want. A 90-10 program.
Bring 10
I want a 90-10 program.
So let me explain that. He wants a 90-10 program. So if the max grant would be 25 from the city and 2,750 from the applicant, or any derivative of 90-10 to get out of the requirement for a 5-year lien.
I don't.
That's what you want.
What he's actually saying.
I'm saying
is
25.
2,500 times 90%.
Right,
Whatever that
but there
number
might,
is.
but you're also mixing it with 90-10.
Okay,
And
then
it might not be a $25,000 grant. It could be a $20,000 grant.
So my example, and I'm flexible. My intention was, if I give you, if for a $25,000 grant, I'm going to give you 22.5. You're going to put in 2,500. If you need 20,000, you're going to put in 18. I'm going to put in 2.
Just to make this simple, a 90-10 grant or a 5-year lien.
Yes.
That's
with a 20% decrease each year.
Yes. That's the motion on the floor.
Yes.
That was clarification discussion. We will, if it's adopted, we can write it up as such.
Okay. Roll call on the amended motion.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, so now we need to.
So now the motion is amended to a 90-10 or a 5-year lien with the other modifications that we've made to increase the funding of the home program. So that's the, yes.
And we've discussed that, so no discussion, no other.
So we have to vote on the original?
Yeah.
Yep,
No.
as amended.
As amended. Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Just clarify, what are we voting on here? The original?
We are now voting on the modified grant as amended.
There was a vote to accept the amendment, and now voting on the motion as amended.
Okay. No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And that's that. Informational reports. We have none. City attorney items.
No, sir, none this evening.
City manager items.
I just want to recognize a couple of the things that the commission did this evening. I think the adoption of the new pay scale, the CBAs, is a really significant thing on behalf of the employees. I thank the commission for your bold action on that. And I think we knocked out a couple of things that were already on the vision, mission, goal agenda list that we approved earlier tonight in modifying the home grant, which I think is a great modification, and as well as doing a couple things with the commissary kitchen. So it was a big night.
And we have roll call. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
I just want to comment or compliment the department heads. When I went through the, what do you call it, the vision statement, I want them to know that I looked closely at their input and appreciated and respected their comments. They were very helpful.
Commissioner Berry?
None at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Connell?
Nothing.
Commissioner Reisman?
Just one thing. I've been talking with Al about the downtown parking enforcement. I'll shoot that over to him because him and I have been talking about that. So do you want me to pass this out?
Yeah, there.
Maybe I can have those. Go that way. I'll listen. What you got?
So with downtown growing, I know we have talked in the past about enforcing legal parking, and he's thinking this is something we need to look into about getting a study.
Do you want me to fill in the gaps?
you fill in the gaps.
I don't want to steal any thunder.
Nope.
So Commissioner Reisman has brought to this body the concept of enforcing no parking in downtown more stringently. The city staff and former commissions have been hesitant to do so because the other side of the equation is the lack of parking downtown. So if we begin to enforce parking where we shouldn't park, this is not low-hanging fruit. This is a significant issue on either side of the equation. Also, part of the problem with enforcing parking downtown, whether it's metered parking or the number of non-conforming parking spaces that we have downtown. So you'll note throughout downtown, specifically on 2nd and 3rd Street, where you have parking on both sides of the street on a two-side street, and you really then don't have room for two cars to pass each other because you got parking on both sides of the street, which creates an aisle, which creates safety issues. So we went out and identified, and Commissioner Reisman obviously has been talking to me offline about this. It's something he wants this body to tackle. So staff-wise, we went out and examined the issue, and the map that's before you is just kind of very rudimentary of red dots on places downtown where those parking spaces don't meet a standard or create safety hazards. If you count up all the red dots, the number is 20. That's a lot of parking spots. If you count up probably all of the parking spots downtown, there's probably 100. So if you want to have if you want to have parking safety and ease congestion in the downtown, you would eliminate those parking spots. I would submit to you that if you remove 20 parking spots downtown, you ain't heard nothing yet with reference to there's inadequate parking. So long story short, I think that the concept concerns merit, because I think there's ways to modify parking downtown that doesn't require removing parking. The first thing that would come to mind is making the streets uniformly one way. So 2nd Street goes one way, 3rd Street goes the other. If you create a situation where you have one-way streets, then you don't have to potentially lose so many parking spots, and then it becomes safer to operate. I think the way to tackle this problem, unfortunately, is because it's not low-lying fruit and it has a lot of sticky wickets, I think it deserves some significant study beyond that of the Public Works Director, the City Manager, and the Chief of Police. I think those respective employees do a pretty good job, but there's a lot of sticky wickets to this, and I think it probably merits to put into the fiscal year 24 some type of budget. I know probably, Commissioner Reisman, it makes the process longer to address. I don't think this is a quick fix, and a study is always expensive, so my knee-jerk would be a study of this would be probably 25 to 50 grand. But if we want to fix it right, I think we need to do that study, because then I think there's other things that go into that study, like the parking garage. Do we really need more parking? Is there centralized parking areas that we can look at? Is there a more uniform to fix, and then we budget that? So I would suggest that if we're going to do this correctly, we probably need to take a step back, have a traffic engineer come in and analyze and give us some real solutions that then we can move forward with.
Yeah, I'd like to slow it down, and I'll just add that we had, I forget the term for it, the study, we met with the community before COVID, right before COVID, was the downtown master plan redevelopment.
It was, yeah, and that was actually, I think, 2017, 2018 when we adopted that.
But irrespective, it got lost during COVID.
It did.
It had good progress or good, it was moving forward very well, and then it just fell apart during COVID. But the community, I think, help me out, the priorities were, parking was in the top. Parking, I think, was number 2. It was number 3 or number 2. So I guess where I'm going with this is in budget this year. I'm going to be, help me out, Johnny, number 2 in budget.
And frankly, I think parking is a difficult issue, and I don't want to get. You pay me to say stuff you don't want to hear, but I really honestly think, and I think if you talk to professionals, I think it's more of a perceived problem.
Yeah.
We invested what? How many millions of dollars into a parking garage that, unless Bike Fest is here, it's ostensibly empty. Yeah. So there's not a parking issue. The issue is that people don't want to walk in downtown. And if you go to any downtown, if you go to Washington, D.C., you go to Orlando, you go to Tampa, you go to Tavares, you go to Mount Dora, you're going to park a couple blocks away unless you get lucky. That is no different here. We've also put out a couple of suggestions of how we can help with parking by moving your favorite building and creating a centralized parking lot. So I don't. So if we're going to go down this parking path, which Commissioner Reisman has brought to the table, with all due respect, I think we do need to take a step back, and I think we probably need to put a study in the budget for 24 and commence a study and really look at it, because I think you need a traffic engineer and not your city manager telling you you don't have a problem. And sometimes, unfortunately or fortunately, studies have value. And I think this is a complicated fix.
Yeah.
I think if you go out and you eliminate 20 parking spots for the 2 people you make happy, you're going to have 2 people unhappy, and you're going to be right back in the same boat. So I think before we start doing anything, we need to get a grip on what the real problem is and how we need to fix it by a professional traffic engineer.
Yeah, I used to work downtown. I'm pro downtown. I agree with all your comments. I don't think we have a parking problem. We have plenty of parking. It's just not the perfect location. But I have some ideas that are not that expensive. I'll bring them to budget, and I'll just lay in the groundwork to the commission that I am going to push for some improvements in parking. It's not going to be a ton of money.
And so therein lies the problem, Commissioner, is you have a ton of ideas that are probably going to be polar opposite of Commissioner Reisman. And that's why you need to bring in the professional outside
that's
resources.
fine too. I was trying to. I didn't think.
I think we need to take, because whenever you talk about traffic on any level, on our level, it becomes emotional, and we have perceived problems, and sometimes they are whether it's traffic or even a road issue. We are not traffic engineers, and just like everything in life, the answer is inverse of what you inertly feel, because it's a feeling, it's not real. And so that's why you have professionals who study this and who make recommendations, and everybody says, holy cow, these people, how do you come up with a traffic plan? Well, because they're doing it on principles of engineering, not feeling. And then when we see that, if we don't like it, then we think they're wrong and we're right because we drive that road every day. But that's not the case. There's real engineering principles. And so, Commissioner Peterson, with all due respect, I love you, but your ideas are going to be different to Commissioner Reisman's. And if we're going to tackle downtown parking, we need to get professional help.
I'm not talking about multi-million-dollar projects. I had a few ideas. I'll close with this. Whenever I have to come downtown for lunch and have to walk 3 blocks, I smile, because that means there's a lot of people downtown.
Exactly. Exactly.
Parking problems is a good thing.
So, just for clear, I know we're not voting on it tonight, but considering coming up in the upcoming budget to spend $25,000 or $50,000 to address 20 parking spaces on which way the road needs to be, if it's one way or 2-way, really? Over 50
Yes, sir.
grand, 50 grand for 20 parking spots?
I will drill down into what we think a parking study will cost, and that will be a proposal that you can say thumbs up or thumbs down to in the budget process.
Anything else?
That'll be it for me.
Mayor Burry.
Nothing tonight. Move for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We're done. Agreed.